Kanye West earns $2.2 million in sales since he posted shunning streaming giants. So let's get right into the story. So Kanye West has netted $2.2 million in sales since announcing that his forthcoming album, Donda 2, will only be available through his own music player. The All the Lights rapper shared in an Instagram post Saturday his purported sales since revealing a day earlier that he would release the record only with the purchase of his $200 stem player. We've made $2,227,012.05 in 24 hours, West wrote. God is good. Thank you guys for taking this journey. His stem player lets users customize any song according to its sales page. West announced this week that he was shunning services like Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, and Apple for being unfair to artists. So total users 5,405,274. The conversion rate is 1.12%. The net sales since launch 9,496,919.68. Net sales since shipping, $4,697,259.88. Net sales since Ye Post, 2,227,012.05. Units last 60 minutes, 163. Net sales last 60 minutes, 35,783 and 5 cents. Units last 24 hours, 8,034, and net sales last 24 hours, $1,766,004.01. The monthly run rate L24 241,020. Monthly run rate LW 44,234. Total units shipped 33,117, and total units in transit 142. So it's time to free music from this oppressive system. It's time to take control and build our own, he said. Now, here's the interesting thing about this for people to really understand, right? The majority of artists can't do this, right? A lot of them are in some really sketchy contracts with these music labels. Like that's something that people really need to understand is that a lot of these artists are still in like really disgusting music contracts, right? Where that basically they pretty much sold their soul and life to these music labels, right? Like it's really disturbing on some of these contracts that are actually signed by these artists. Now, the interesting about this, why this is actually even important to even talk about, is that if you are someone who is starting to build up like some sort of social media presence or audience base, and you are like a musician, right? You don't even have to be a musician, but in this context, say that you're a musician, you could just sell maybe a higher ticket version of your product to your fans, to your audience base. And if you got at least some amount of fans, you can make a really good living, right? Without having to have massive amounts of streams, right? So, for example, what do I mean by this? Let's say that you are a singer, you are a game streamer, let's say that you are an actor or whatever, right? But let's just say, for this context, you're a musician of some kind, right? Instead of relying purely on just music streams, for example, because they basically pay you nothing, because if you're a small musician, you're not going to get the amount of streams to actually make a really good living, because they basically pay nothing. So, what you can do is maybe set up something to where you maybe charge like $500 to $1,000 for like a live streaming performance for your audience, right? So, even if you're a musician that has a really strong fan base all over the world, that's at least like 1,000 people all over the world, then you might be able to pull in $1 million in revenue per year, right? If you do like really good shows, maybe once every week, once every month, right? And the same kind of concept could be done. Let's say that if you're a gamer that live streams without a big audience, just a small audience, if you are able to build up a loyal fan base with some numbers to it, I'm talking about at least a few hundred followers that are like super loyal to you or listeners or whatever, you could actually generate a large amount of revenue. You just got to structure it differently, right? Now, the interesting about for Kanye and his example, people his size, the musicians at his level, could easily generate millions upon millions of dollars instantly, right? Like they're not going to necessarily have to do something more like premium, like what I just talked about. If you're a smaller performer, but like if you're like someone like Kanye, Justin Bieber, whatever, those really big names in the music industry, you could literally, because of how strong your audience base is, just be like, hey, my next album is going to be sold on my website powered by Shopify or something. Pay 10, $20 there for my music, and there you go. Now you just generated like 20, 30, 40, maybe even $100 million, depending on how massive these audience people are, right? For example, The Rock, who's not a music performer, at least not a good one, because of how big his audience is, he could easily make his new movie purely on his own platform and generate millions of dollars from that because of how big his audience is. He doesn't have to deal with all these other different companies or all these different like industries or all these barriers, right? He doesn't have to go through the movie industry. He doesn't have to go through Hollywood. He could just do all his own. He doesn't even have to deal with Netflix or any of that. Just literally create a quick website, sell it on like a premium amount, right? He could literally sell like a movie for like $50, $60, put it on his own website, have that literally the only product, and he could literally generate millions of dollars overnight, right? And that's what a lot of people need to understand is that like for all these celebrities, all these musicians that have gotten the audience base that they have, because all these musicians typically that are making some money from Spotify or all these streaming services, they're getting like 10, 20, 30, 40 million streams per month. Not really making that much money, but enough to actually where it's actually still worthwhile. It's more than the typical annual income of like an American, right? Like so they're still making good money, but in terms of like how much they could be making, it's basically nothing. All these people have such a strong enough fan base that they could easily just do something themselves, right? Like another way to think of it, all these like Instagram models, right, that like build up like 100,000 follower fan base or like a 50,000 follower fan base or even a million fan base. These girls are like just what doing like OnlyFans, posting like one topless photo, making millions of dollars in like a weekend. That's basically the same concept that Kanye is basically talking about, and I'm talking about, right? If you're able to build up a loyal enough fan base, regardless of the size, you could still make a lot of money depending on how you structure it. If you have a smaller fan base, it's going to have to be a little bit more premium for you to actually make a good living. If you have a more massive fan base, because of the sheer amount of numbers, you could have a product that's priced pretty cheaply and still make a lot of money. So it's just a different way to view it. You don't get to view things in like a very negative outlook because a lot of people just want to get their music on Spotify or their music on Apple Music or all that kind of stuff or on the radio for some reason. But if you're able to actually literally get sales of your music, right, where it's actually worthwhile, then yeah, go down that route and actually make a living